All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tony Vetta, President and CEO of the North Texas LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I am happy to be here today representing the Texas LGBTQ chambers. We represent chambers in North Texas, the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber, the Austin LGBT Chamber, and the San Antonio LGBT Chamber. So today we're going to do a little bit of advocacy training. Hopefully folks on this call have signed up to join us next Tuesday at the state capitol. If not, this will still be good information for you to have. And we encourage people who are not coming to the Capitol to go ahead and sign up and work with us digitally next week and throughout the legislative session. So today, and most of you know, whether you're in our chamber or not, that we've been working with McGuireWoods Consulting this legislative session, and I cannot say enough good things about them. As a matter of fact, I had a board meeting this morning and I said, oh my God, best money we've ever spent. The board was very happy to hear that. They've just been really great shepherding us through the process and making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So we love that. So from McGuireWoods today, we have Joshua Canter, or Josh Canter, either way is fine, I've been told. He's the Vice President of Digital Advocacy for McGuireWoods. He has 8+ years in digital advocacy, including running multi-million-dollar advertising budgets, launching interactive websites, generating organic social media content. Well, the list goes on and on. It's all this digital kind of stuff that goes way over my head. He's also helped pass model legislation in other states where he's worked. He's also been featured in the Los Angeles Times, Wired Magazine, Adweek, and the New York Times. So he's a pretty impressive guy, and I think we will all learn something new today. So with that, Joshua, if you will take it away.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So what we'll go over today is kind of some basic high-level advocacy as well as tactical digital advocacy. So things like, what to say on Twitter, and then even high-level, like how to say it, right? So let's start by saying why to advocate. Starting with a few facts that I think really that help us start from a foundation that we do have a strong voice, right? As the LGBTQ business voice, right? So the first being that it's a $14 trillion estimated total of the GDP of self-identifying LGBTQ population, right? That's half the current GDP of the United States. So when talking to legislators, to staffers about the business interests of the LGBTQ population, keep in mind that there is a massive amount of money circulating in GDP and in the economy that's coming from the population. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense. And then why we advocate as well is right now, the Texas chambers are watching 23 current bills that are going through the House and Senate and have the potential to become a law, right? And these bills range from passage of a comprehensive and full inclusive non-discriminatory law. Also, though, we're wanting to oppose legislation that limits an individual's right to gender expression, right? So it's both sides of the coin. It's both helping, as we say, to pass bills or kill bills, depending on how we feel about them, right? But so the why to advocate, though, is not just that we have a business voice and a strong business voice, but there's active legislation that's impacting our bottom line and our right to self, gender expression and a ton of other rights kind of that run the gamut. Like I said, this coming Texas session will debate issues that impact the economy and the state. Kind of as we've been talking and the Texas LGBTQ chambers have been talking and engaging for the past few weeks or a few months, excuse me, we've talked about how Texas needs an inclusive economy where businesses can succeed, grow, and thrive, right? And the goal is not just for the chambers all the time, but for the day at the Capitol next Tuesday that we're specifically looking at, we want to fight for the best business environment, right? That includes attracting the best and brightest workforce in the country. And ultimately, that's the overarching message that we want to portray, and that's what you on this call, we want you to portray as well. So getting into some of the nuts and bolts of what we advocate, right? particularly, again, focused on this coming Tuesday at the Day of the Capitol, but really covering all 23 of the bills that we're watching, right? And that's to say, starting from a point of finding commonality with who you're advocating for. And so let me pause and say, when I'm saying advocate for, that could be anything from a tweet to a legislator, that could be a phone call, that could be an email, that could be an in-person visit to the office, right? And specifically the Day at the Capitol is an in-person visit. And then most likely you're talking with a staffer, potentially a legislator, things like that. So starting from the camaraderie means, right, that everyone moved here or stayed here for a reason that they love, right? That you share with them, and that you encourage the impact of the potential legislation to have on your ability to continue to live, work, and enjoy Texas, right? And this is kind of playing in the sense of like, no one likes Texas more than Texas, right? But it's saying, starting from a point of view of where that there is a reason that you're here, and you start in a reason that you're advocating for, and that's because you love where you live and work. Then getting into a little bit smaller, the three main buckets, right? It's concerned about a number of bills for punishing businesses, large and small, for creating safe space for minority communities, attempting to enact healthcare bans for transgender youth, and then also bills that attempt to devalue the humanity of transgender Texans, right? And why those are three, very big buckets, there's a lot of bills that kind of fall into those things. Those are three very specific things that are coming from the 23 bills that we're tracking, right? And they're not necessarily at times the most, how can I say, it's like on the forefront, a lot of the bills aren't business, taxes or, subsidies and things like that. But what we're talking about and what we're advocating for is the business environment, right? And the workforce that's, in the environment in Texas. So continuing on how to advocate, again, nuts and bolts here, right? Lawmakers need to hear from you, right? And you need to have a compelling argument. So tactically, Twitter is a great place where if you're at home, if you think about something, I worked on the session in 2019 it was, and we kind of did a little case study about the hashtag TXLedge. And we found that by tweeting 3 to 4 times per day, we're capturing almost a quarter of the 250,000 impressions. And this hashtag is used by staffers, some legislators, not a lot are on Twitter, but some, it's used by pundits, journalists, it's used by, people watching the Capitol and people in the know. So being, tweeting that small number 3 to 4 times a day, capturing that much of impressions means that we're inserting our voice into it, right? And the potential here is both in calling and engaging with legislators, so either tagging them or mentioning them or things like that, but also just issue-based conversations, right? And pushing forward the conversation around the business environment. Additionally, this is email calls show up, right? From those, we find that a lot of times the emails are used as a quantitative tool, where the call is more of a direct impact. So a lot of times emails will go through and someone will be at the end of the day, count up the number of emails and just say, okay, we got 20 emails for and 10 emails against, right? Where a call can compel more into the individual that's answering the phone and talking to you, right? And then finally, like the most effective and the most important way is to show up, right? And when you show up, a lot of times, specifically like the Day at the Capitol, you'll have coordination that will help support that effort. So next Tuesday when we do this, we will have a pamphlet, a trifold, that you'll be given that has your assigned representative and your assigned senator and what office they are, as well as the talking points in there and a agenda for the day, right? So you know where to be and where to show up. And then even further from that, when it comes time to actually meet with your legislator, there'll be a lot of staff on hand, myself, Tony, and others on this call, right, that will be guiding you to the specific office. So think of it less like, obviously we want to advocate and show up at any point during the session, right? If it calls for it and the bill necessitates it, but particularly on Tuesday is one where it's more guided and helpful, and you can show up and have kind of the backing and confidence of it. A lot of times, people will go to a legislator and find that they want to tell their story, but don't know how or things to say. And that's what, not just today, but during the day at the Capitol, we have dedicated time to kind of help flesh out those messages that are most effective, right? So getting to that, right, talk about the narrative. and most importantly, to have both emotions and facts, right? And that's why I started off, with kind of that major business GDP facts, but also pairing it with personal stories and statistics and giving some. The stories can be about yourself, about things you've witnessed, about people you know, particularly tied to the legislation, and then, grounded in examples and facts. So for example, one of the buckets that we're covering is the right to, it's this third one here. So it's the attempt to, the second one, attempt to enact healthcare bans for transgender youth, and particularly in opposition to best practice medical standards. So a great example here of showing both the emotion and the fact is to share a story, whether it's about yourself or someone else that you know, or something that you've read or something that's been talked about in the district, of a healthcare ban and the effects of it on transgender youth, right? Or the talk of it, or the environment that transgender youth have to grow up in, and then ending it in saying that the healthcare ban is against best practice medical standards of care, right? So it's not just you, and it's not just the story that you know, but it is more of an authoritative, this is going against what the medical community considers to be best practices, right? And so that's kind of focusing on the narrative of both the emotional draw and the logical, giving the facts and examples. Up next on how to advocate, talking through some 1, 2, 3, I tried to lay them out pretty easy. So you can remember. One, ask them about them. This is, again, like I said earlier, like building common ground with them. Most of the time, the staffer will have had either lived in the district, worked in the district, or had experience in the district. So asking them not just, how long they worked for the representative and the senators, what policy area they focus on, and the top priorities, like the first one, but then also trying to build that commonality in the second one of talking about yourself and the district, right? So you're moving through both talking about them to talking about you to finding the common ground of what's in the district and things to do. These can be from, not just your personal stories about the district, but your favorite things to do, your favorite restaurant to go to, and then slowly transitioning it, obviously, to thinking about what the most important issues you're facing in the district. And this is where you start to share and, again, zero in and kind of, circle around and then slowly move into this issue that we're advocating for in the business environment, right? And talking about what's the best part of working in Texas. That's, again, going to that finding commonality and building, familiar ground. To how Texas can attract or support new business and why this issue matters to you, particularly in those 3 buckets. Continuing, generally be vocal and reach out to your elected officials. Like I said, elected officials want to hear from representatives. I heard a fact the other day that this is in the federal level, but the average US representative gives 170,000 constituent communications every session. And that's on the US level, so that's very high, but obviously Texas is one of the most, one of the biggest states, and obviously probably one of the most vocal. So that at the same time they're getting a lot, they want to get a lot, right? Because they want to represent their district and they want to decide on issues based on how voters in their district care, right? So they want to hear from you and they want you to reach out. That matters to you. So generally speaking, your voice matters, make your voice heard. Obviously, next week is the perfect opportunity to kind of be shepherd and help out with that. And then finally, the details on next Tuesday, on February 14th, so we'll do the day at the Capitol. To give a kind of a more high-level view of it, there's a welcome reception the night before, where there'll be a chance to meet other representatives of the chambers, other elected officials, business leaders, things like that. And then during the day, we'll start early in the morning with a breakfast. There's going to be elected officials from the Texas LGBTQ caucus that will speak at that. We're going to be taking a photo of everyone participating in front of the steps of the Capitol. And then each person will be, like I said, assigned to an office and go and can break out into those offices. There'll be chances at the breakfast and also at the lunch, which will happen before the second set of meetings, to have kind of practice sessions or conversations, assistance in what to say, how to say it, how to build that narrative of both emotions and facts. And like I said, when you're meeting your senator and representative, you'll have a trifold with you that will have the talking points in there. So it's not something that you feel like you have to memorize or practice or give a speech in front of your, spouse or cat or mirror or whatever the case may be. Like, it'll be right there in front of you, and it'll be very kind of fluid conversation more than a speech of anything. Lastly, if you're unable to participate at the Capitol, you can also participate digitally by signing up for either at texaslgbtchambers.com/voice. You can sign up for either in person or digitally. When you sign up for digitally, you'll be sent a toolkit that will help kind of assist that. The toolkit includes sample posts where you can save the photo and have the suggested copy there with hashtags and everything on posting that, excuse me, as well as a tool to actually reach out to your legislator right there on the webpage. So you can go on, type in your address, it'll fill it in with your elected official, and you hit send, and the email is off and on their way to the inbox. We've also created a tool on the digital toolkit that can have your name plugged into a graphic they can also share. That would help kind of bring more of a branded, personalized badge to the aspect of it. The website is texaslgbtqchambers.com/voice. There's a QR code here that you can also scan and get to it on your phone at this time. But I did want to open it up to questions, discussions, things that might have, I'm looking at the chat as well too. Yeah, so I think the first question in the chat, everyone can see, but I'll repeat it again. The specific bill that we're trying to push is the LGBTBE, which is a certification. In case you're unfamiliar with it, it's a national certification that's awarded to LGBT-owned businesses. The bill we're specifically trying to push is changing the ruling. I think it's chapter 216 that will include it in that, so that way government contracts and things like that are awarded. So to answer your question, specific messaging on that, yes, we do have it. I think the best way to get that to you is either if you show up in person, it will be on the trifold, specifically mention this chapter, like I just said, mention this, mention that. If you sign up for the digital toolkit, that'll be emailed out to you. You'll have all the talking points and you'll be able to do that. Some of the social content in the digital is less specific towards talking points, but you'll have the talking points and you can craft your own message as well. And then there's another question about, do we have messaging for the recent news that Abbott wants to ban DEI initiatives at our companies? I think that's a great question. And I think our focus for this session has been on passing, while there's 23 bills, the specific has been passing the business certification around it and not necessarily trying to cover all things. But there will be, I'll check to see if there's messaging on it yet already. I'm not entirely sure since the news is relatively recent, I believe, right? It was today that he announced that. So that will be coming up, but we can include that. And then you can always follow up with Tony or myself or someone afterwards. I'll put my email in the chat so you have it and we can get that to you as well. Yeah, great question. What's the dress code, right? Suits, ties, forward, of course. I think so. There's a great, oh my gosh, it's the Alzheimer's Association. It's a patient advocate group for Alzheimer's research. And one of their biggest things is that they wear sashes, blue sashes, when they go and visit the office of legislators, either state or federally. And the purpose of that is to stand out, right? And to kind of have memory. I think it's some crazy stat, like the average office has, 15 or 20 meetings a day, right? So you really want to not just have a good compelling narrative, but you want to stand out in that. So I think with that note, to answer your question, what's the dress code? The encouragement would be to dress as you see you fit, right? The expression there of whatever and you want to. If you're comfortable in a suit and tie, well, you can wear a suit and tie, right? If you're comfortable in something else, wear whatever you feel comfortable in, whatever you want in that sense. But this is not, we're obviously, I think we can be frank with, and understand that we're trying to appeal to both the business and the, human issue here. But we're not trying to wash out any kind of expression or any kind of feeling. Like, these personal stories are what's authentic and what's meaningful and what has impact. And that story is just also how you, express yourself and dress, but also what you're telling them and how you're telling them. Our goal is not to change anything, it's just to say, okay, here's how to do it effectively. So that's a great question, though.
We will also have, I don't know if you can see this, Texas LGBTQ Chamber lapel pins for everyone with a little rainbow ribbon. So we will have those for everyone to wear, so you'll be recognizable and be able to recognize each other.
Yeah. Definitely. And there'll be lots, the other thing too on that is there's lots of signage. I mean, there's lots of signage and all the signage has rainbows and stuff. The Capitol will feel like that, right? So, you know, I think matching that and doing that. So next question, is there a time frame? Is this happening on the 13th and 14th? So the welcome reception is on the evening of the 13th. It's a post-work pre-dinner kind of welcome reception. So think around that time frame, very open house style, come as you go. There'll be some remarks made. And then on the 14th, I think we're starting, I went to look this up. I think we're starting at 7. Is that what it is, Tony? Do you know? I have it right here. We're starting at 8, excuse me. So 8 a.m. is the breakfast. And this is all on the website too. So if you go to the website, you can start to see some of that information. 8 a.m. is the breakfast, then the group photo, and then 9:30 is the first kind of meetings there. And then we'll break for, 9:30 is the recognition. So there'll be a recognition on the Senate and the House floor, and we'll be able to observe that from the balconies as well as take pictures and things like that. And then 11 a.m. is the first meetings, and then we'll have lunch and then some more meetings and then meet at the end to debrief and dismiss. Yes, and the agenda is just posted right there. I think a pink prom dress would be the talk of the Capitol, to be honest. So I'm supportive. That's a good question, Don, on restrictions on camera types. I don't believe they are. I think the only restriction is the location. So we can't be on the floor and we have to be in the balcony and things like that too. There will be a professional photographer that's being employed by the chambers that will be going around not just for the House and Senate floor recognition, but also for the meetings and for the reception and all that stuff like that. So my suggestion would be to rely on the professional photographer and bring an iPhone, unless you have some other, you know, kind of thing in mind. But I don't believe there's any restrictions on cameras, just on where you can be. Great. Any other questions?
It is the State House, so so everybody can bring a gun, right?
Right. Yeah. So, Don, yeah, I think then if you're a pro and you want to bring the big lens, I think that's fine. If you want to PM or direct message me your email, I'll check with our lobbyists and our staff on hand and make sure it's good in the rules, and then I can follow up with you. But I'm pretty sure it should be fine. Yeah, and like Tony said, if you can bring a gun, then, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I sent you my email. I'm very
Cool.
careful when I'm at the Capitol talking about shooting things, because clearly I'm talking about a camera, but we can't take that for granted at the Texas Capitol.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, of course. So, okay, well, I'll follow up with you on that. Any other questions? I put my email in there, the website's in there, everything's there if you have, you know, any kind of other thoughts and stuff. Okay, great. Well, then I hope to see everyone for the day at the Capitol. Monday night is the welcome reception, and then Tuesday for the full day to advocate. Thank you all for coming.
All righty. Bye, everybody.